Hello and welcome to the 2015 redraft of the MLB Draft. I'm Andrew Varga, and alongside me is my good friend Nick Aguilera. Hello, Nick.
Hey Andrew, how you doing?
I'm blessed, and I'm ready to get started. So,
I don't know if
if
I
you
am.
have, oh yeah, this draft, the 2015 draft, is very tough. So if you didn't listen to the 2016 redraft, I recommend you do that. We'll go over the rules again. Each player gets 15 picks each. They alternate. The player must have signed in that draft, so you can't have a high school senior who didn't sign and then went to school. You can't draft them. Any player eligible for the draft but undrafted are okay, but you don't really get a whole lot of those now. No players who were signed on the international free agent market. It's only the players who were drafted. You're supposed to draft the best player available, so you don't consider how much they fit with the team. You're not actually drafting a team, or how much, or the likelihood of them signing. You don't worry about them asking for a higher signing bonus. And it is okay to consider players were drafted to a team with bad coaching, such as, for example, you might think that Christian Yelich should get drafted higher, or would have had a better career if he had gone to a team other than the Marlins. So you can consider that when you're drafting, and you can consider maybe with a better training staff, this player wouldn't have gotten injured, but you should put more weight on past performance and expected future performance. All right, I let you go first last time, so I'm going to go first this
Indeed,
time.
go ahead,
Eh,
take it away.
This is a this is a very obvious first pick.
Yep.
There's only one player that could be considered, and it's not the player who went first overall. It is the player who went second overall out of LSU, and that is Alex Bregman.
No, yeah, he was clear cut favorite in this one. There was no one even close. In WAR, I think he had more than 10 WAR than the second player available. So
And so
yeah,
last time I was going over Keith Law's mock draft. As far as I could tell, all of his mock drafts for 2015 have been wiped off the site, but they do have he did rank his top 50 favorite players. And I can tell you that Alex Bregman was seventh in that list. So this came out April 10th, 2015. Fangraphs also, they had a mock draft. This was written by Kylie McDaniel. And they did not have Alex Bregman going until number 4. He was supposed to go to a different Texas team, the Texas Rangers.
that would have been interesting because he would have filled in right for Beltray.
Yeah, he might have even played shortstop and they get rid of
That's true.
Elvis Andrews.
He was a shortstop coming up, so he could have stuck at shortstop if he had gone to the Rangers.
All right, let's hear number 2.
All right, number two. One thing I've noticed about this draft is that it was very first round heavy. This guy came kind of in the later first round out of Vanderbilt. Uh, that's going to be pitcher Walker Bueller, who was the 24th overall pick in 2015.
That is also who I had number 2 on my board. He had Tommy John surgery. He's back, and he is as good as ever.
I was looking at his baseball reference page, and he had a lot lower WAR than I would have expected from him last season.
Yeah, he isn't. I think we talked about last time about somebody like Dustin May who doesn't necessarily have the results that you would expect at the stuff. I don't really think of Walker Bueller as one of those guys, but he also is at 5.5 career WAR, at least on Baseball Reference, which is lower than you would think.
Yeah, and just two WAR last year, even though his FIP over the past two seasons has been 3.04 and 3.01. So I don't know.
My guess is that the Dodgers have a good defense, and that's chipping away at the WAR, but that seems a bit excessive to me.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's probably one of the better pitchers in the NL West, if not the best pitcher in the NL West.
Well, he's no Drew Smiley. All right. My pick number 3, there's a couple different candidates I could go with here. I'm going to go with the man who was the 7th pick in this draft. Was drafted by the Boston Red Sox out of Arkansas, and that is Andrew Benintendi.
All right, we have our first discrepancy. I had Benintendi one position lower than you did.
Ooh, I'm interested to see. I've got an idea about who you had above him.
Yeah, this guy for the fourth overall pick is going to be the 28th overall pick in 2015, and that's going to be the Canadian phenom Mike Soroka.
That was not who I was expecting. I have Soroka number 7th on my board.
Really?
Yes, I had a few pitchers ahead of him, a couple of position players, and to me, it comes down
All
to
right.
I think that he's really outpitched his peripherals. And last year 2.7 ERA, 3.4 FIP. And I do wonder, there was that whole thing where the Braves didn't want to have him pitch on the road last year, or pardon me, pitch at home in the playoffs last year. So that thing was very strange. So I stayed away from him for that reason.
Yeah, I could see that, and definitely a guy that probably outpitched his peripherals. But if you look at like 2016, he probably would not have made my top 10. But in this kind of weak draft class, he's the third best player available, in my opinion.
And I can say that he was not on the Fangraphs mock draft. He wasn't mentioned. And that went up to pick number 26.
He was 28, so
So,
maybe they had him right after. Who knows?
and Keith Law didn't have him in his favorite 50 prospects
Wow.
of the. So he's done much better for himself than you would expect.
Yeah.
All right, well here's one of the 3 undrafted players that I had ahead of Mike Soroka, and that is a 4th-round pick. Was picked with the 131st overall pick, Paul DeYoung, and it might seem like Paul DeYoung's been in the big leagues forever, but I think people don't realize quite how good he has been in his career. To be drafted in 2015 to be at almost 12 WAR is pretty good. I think only Bregman has more out of this draft,
Yeah.
and he's a shortstop. He hasn't hit quite as well as he did his rookie season, where he had a 121 OPS plus, but he kind of hovers around league average, solid with the glove. Was an all-star this year, and he's only 25 as well, so I think he has a little more in the bat. He had 30 home runs last year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I could definitely see how he's the second or third best position player in this draft. And yeah, he had a nice season last year, earning an All-Star nod. I'm worried about the average. I'm worried about the ability to put balls in play, not just put them over the fence. So that's why I didn't have him as high as you did. I had him at 9. I have a couple other guys that I liked a little bit better.
Are you saying that he knows how to slug but not doesn't know how to hit?
He's a real Joey Gallo type player.
All right, number 6.
All right, at number 6 is going to be my third straight pitcher. This guy is going to carve out a nice career for him. He was drafted in the 8th round, 236th overall pick by the Miami Marlins way back in 2015. That's going to be Chris Paddock, the Sheriff.
Chris Paddock. I had him in my number 5 spot, so he would have been who I would draft next. And I will point out that he had his ERA was in the threes last year, but the Padres still kind of treated him with kid gloves. Only pitched
Yeah.
140 innings, and he did near the end of the season. He fell off a bit. His FIP was almost 4.
Yeah, near the end of the season, kind of had a fall off, but that's because he was coming off Tommy John. They kind of forced him right from, I think it was high A, forced his hand, and he went ahead and pitched very well in the majors. Kind of the same blueprint they had with Lucchesi, and he shined. I think he's going to be a star.
I agree. Not so sure he's quite an ace, but I think he's definitely a good number 2
Yeah, and
for the future.
they don't really need him to be an ace because they have some guys coming up, such as Morion, Mackenzie Gore, who can fill that ace spot. But he's going to be a really good pitcher going forward.
I agree. Well, I had this guy ahead of Mike Soroka too, and I feel a little silly. I should have had him below Mike Soroka, I've decided, but I'm going to draft him here anyway. And this is a guy who I don't think people realize how good he's been in the big leagues. It's kind of not gotten talked about a whole lot. It was the 9th overall pick, drafted out of Cincinnati. I'm going to go with Ian Happ.
All right, of course, Ian Happ, the center fielder for the Chicago Cubs, kind of had that weird situation where he lost out on the starting job in center field.
Yeah, but even then, in 126 OPS plus last year, 111 for his career, which it's weird. He only played in 58 games last year, but he's a guy who's done nothing but hit since he's come up. Isn't a great defender, but he can play all around the diamond. I think he's a real solid player. And if he was on a team that the Cubs just, even if they don't have a lot of positions, they have a lot of guys, even if they don't have like that one great guy. You think of center field, how many years have we been hearing about Albert Almora in center field? But they have a lot of guys who compete, so maybe he hasn't gotten all the at bats that he should. But I mean, we're more than 1,000 plate appearances into his career now, and he has 111 OPS plus. So I think he's a real quality hitter.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good pick.
All right, number 8.
Number 8, I'm going with another guy that was not drafted in the first round. He was a third round pick out of Maryland, number 87 overall, and that's going to be Tampa Bay Rays second baseman Brendan Lau.
And that is loud, not low.
Yep, there.
Yesterday,
Got to make sure that you get it right.
yes, yesterday we talked about one of the lows on the Rays, but the thing I will remember with Brendan Lau is that when he was introduced before the All Star game, Joe Buck called him Brandon Lowe, and he got very upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lau. Got to. It's kind of weird though because his Twitter handle is at Sweet and Lau, but it's called Sweet and Low. So he kind of confuses people on his own there. But
Yeah,
anywho,
you do
anywho,
wonder.
yeah,
I think he holds some responsibility for that.
yeah, exactly. But
All
here
right.
we are, and like I said, nice player. Last season, got the All Star nod, 2.6 B WAR, 17 home runs, very good hitter, 850 OPS last year, 124 OPS plus. I think he's a really good player, and hopefully, with that logjam that the Rays have in the middle infield, he stays.
Well, I'm going to take a player who was Keith Law's favorite prospect in 20 was mocked by Kylie McDaniel of Fangraphs to go number 2 to the Houston Astros, and it is the first player who still has his prospect status in this draft. And I'm going to take Brendan Rodgers,
Wow.
who was
Okay.
taken with the third pick. I know that Keith Law had him high up in his prospect rankings that he did before this year. He was not very good last year in his call up. Now it was only 76 at bats, but he can play short. Last year, small sample, Albuquerque, AAA ball, all that. Absolutely crushed the ball, and he's only 22. So I think that he's going to be a guy who can play short and can crush the ball, which is a pretty good combination.
I am extremely low on Brendan Rodgers. I think that
Wow.
he peaked probably 2 years ago with his prospect status. Last year they were using the MLB balls in AAA, which is already a hitter-friendly environment there in the PCL. Kind of struggled when he came up in Colorado. I just don't see him. Uh, I don't see him getting much consistency there in Colorado. So I think it'd be better for him to be traded, which they should have done 2 years ago when they were in contention. But no, yeah, I think he's lost a little bit of his luster, and I had him all the way down at 18th.
Wow. Okay. Well, I drafted him much higher than I needed to, I guess.
Yeah, probably could have saved that one, but that's the thing with this redraft is we don't know each other's big boards at during this time.
Yes, our big boards were very different yesterday.
Yeah, today a little more consistent, except for the Rogers pick, but for
I
the
get
most
the
part,
feeling that near the bottom of this draft, they're going to
oh
be
yeah,
very different.
very different indeed. All right,
All right, let's hear number 10.
number 10. I'm going with another guy that was called up to the majors last year. Kind of struggled a little bit in his called up, but really tore the cover off the ball when he first came up last year at 18 home runs. That's going to be Braves prospect Austin Riley.
Austin Riley, well, I had him all 18th spot.
So we basically just flipped Riley and Rogers. For Riley, I think it's the same argument you can make for like a Nolan Gorman, Alec Bohm type hitter, where he's going to hit the bombs, but there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. Uh, But honestly, that's kind of where baseball is right now. So, especially from a corner infielder, I really think that he has versatility because he can play not only the corner infield spots but also the corner outfield spots. So, I really like his versatility. I like his bat, and I think he's going to be a good major league hitter.
Now, I know he's 22 and he had better numbers than this in AAA, but 108 strikeouts to 16 walks in the big leagues.
Yeah, no,
I
that's a big problem.
I can't look past that. That's and his numbers were much better in the minor leagues. It was 39 to 20, but and you also it's not as if you get like the big you don't get a whole lot other than the bat and maybe some of the glove with him. He's not super fast, not going to be like a great defensive player.
Yeah,
And so I am a little worried if the bat isn't there, you don't have anything else.
yeah, I think the bat will come around. I think last year he showed it when he first came up. He could hit major league hitting, and then he got hurt. And once he came back, he kind of struggled to regain that stroke. But I think that he's closer to the player that we saw in his first call up than the player we saw post injury.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he makes adjustments. Well, I have picked number 11 here, and this is a fellow from the University of Arizona. And I don't know because the Pirates were not very good last year. I don't think many people were watching them. But Kevin Newman is my pick. He was the 19th overall pick out of Arizona in 2015. And I don't know if people realize he had a very good year last year as a
He did.
shortstop at a 111 OPS plus, OPS of 800, 12 bombs, stole 16 bags. Now he got caught stealing 8 times, so that's not a very good ratio there. But he plays a pretty good shortstop, and if you get a guy who's got a 110 OPS plus as a shortstop, you've got yourself a very good player.
Yeah, definitely. And friend of the pod, Kevin Newman. Talked to
Oh,
him.
was
Talked to him during the Project 34 home run derby. Asked him about Seinfeld, how many times he hears the Newman and Kramer uh, jokes, and he said almost daily. Great guy. I was really rooting for him this year, and alas, there's no season. But he's really nice. So yeah, I like that pick.
and that was the event that then free agent Kevin Pillar was at too.
Yeah, and didn't hit a single home run in a charity home run derby.
Well, he was the first Giants hitter to hit 20 home runs since 2015 last year.
And the first Giants hitter to hit zero in a charity home run derby, I'm guessing.
Well, Joe Paddock could probably do that if he needed to. All right, pick number 12.
Pick number 12 is going to be a guy that a lot of people around baseball are seeming to come around on. Straight out of Loyola Marymount University in California. This guy was drafted in the 6th round, 195th overall pick, has really carved out a niche for himself, and that's going to be David Fletcher of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Earth of Milky Way Galaxy.
I had a feeling you were going to pick him.
Yep, you knew I was. You knew I was. But
I don't believe in him, but I understand all the people who do.
not just the memes. It's kind of the fact that he has a Gold Glove. He could be a Gold Glove shortstop if he needed to be. Um, Definitely a Gold Glove second baseman, third baseman. The bat, no pop, but kind of close to a 300 hitter. Really has not much swing and miss in his game. Whenever he swings at the ball, he hits it and puts it in play. Good eye. So I think that that combination of skills, can really make him a very good baseball player.
I think he got pretty much all out of his. I don't think you could squeeze any more hits out of his bat than what you got last year.
And that's fine. Exactly what he did last year. That's exactly what uh, his kind of role is to be this guy who hits 270 to 290 with great defense and great speed.
Would you say that he's a worthy successor to Johnny Giavotella?
I would say he is a worthy successor.
All right, well, here's somebody who I'm going to pick with the number 13 pick who might be a successor to Josh Reddick. I'm going to take Kyle Tucker, who was the 5th overall pick, was drafted out of high school in Florida, and last year had a pretty good year once he came up. Only played 22 games, but had a 118 OPS plus, after 2018, he didn't really show the bat that we were expecting, but we saw that in 2018, or pardon me, 2019. Should mention that Keith Law had him number 14 when he ranked all the prospects, but then he was mocked to go number 5 to the Astros. So he was a guy the Astros were interested in for a while. And I think that we're just going to see the hit tool is just going to be so advanced that even though it's not as if he's a gold glove winner out there, the hit tool is going to be so good that he's worth this spot.
Yeah, another guy that I kind of softened on, like Brendan Rodgers. I had him number 11, right below the next guy on my list who you haven't taken yet. But I wasn't sure about the hit tool. And this year I kind of warmed up a little bit more because he came up to the majors and he showed it. But he's been in AAA for what, 2, 3 years now. Uh, he
Yeah.
should have been the successor to a number of guys in the outfield, but then they brought in Michael Brantley, kept Josh Reddick around. I think that they were taking it a little too slow with him, and I took that sign as there was something wrong. So this year really showed it in the big leagues. So I kind of warmed up on him. So yeah, good pick.
All right. Number 14.
Now number 14 is going to be another guy who is kind of fits the Fletcher profile of a guy who is glove first on defense. Another guy who can win a Gold Glove at shortstop. This guy was the number 1 overall pick. Second Vandy boy I'm taken in this draft. That's going to be Dansby Swanson.
Well, that is interesting. Yeah, you remember he had all the hype when he was drafted. There was all the Diamondbacks made the worst trade ever, and it's obviously not a good trade still, but it looks a little better in that Swanson's not the great player that we thought he would be. He's like you mentioned, glove first. Aaron Blair is irrelevant now. I think he's retired.
He
And
is.
Ender Inciarte is solid, but nothing special.
I think that he's starting to come around a little bit. Really struggled that second year. Uh, 2018, he kind of found a little bit more, but still couldn't find it with the bat. He does still need to get those walks up. It was at 51 this year, but he needs to cut down to strikeouts as well. He had 124, and for a guy who's a glove first guy with soft contact, I think he needs to get some more consistency there. Hit 17 home runs this year, so he's starting to show the pop a little bit more. So I think if he can just cut out the strikes, cut out the strikeouts, getting a little more consistency at the plate, he can be a real good player.
Well, I had a couple players drafted ahead of him. Um, I should mention that we're going into the number 15 pick. We will take a short intermission after this pick, halfway through. But I'm going to take a prospect or a right-hander who is still with the team that drafted him. Cleveland drafted him in 2015 with the 42nd pick. I'm going to take Tristan McKenzie.
All right, Tristan McKenzie, a pitching prospect over there for the Indians. I know I like that
He
pick. I think he's a good pitching prospect.
Now, he didn't pitch last year, but I should mention that through his first 60 games as a professional, and this is across from rookie ball up to high or up to double A, he had a 2.68 ERA and he struck out 394 in 329 innings.
Yeah, no, he had some served numbers out down there in the minors, but I think the injury does kind of put a little bit of a puncture in his balloon that was rising there.
You do never know when people are or when pitchers I should say are how they're going to return. You look at Matt Harvey, one great
Exactly.
year and nothing else. All right.
That's
Well, it's time for intermission. If you remember if you remember yesterday, we went over the undrafted players, and then we went over the players who had qualifying offers attached to them and who teams gave up draft picks to sign. There is one very good name here. I'll leave him for last. First, we're going to go over the unsigned player, I should say, not undrafted, unsigned, and that was, do you know, Kyle Singer, who's currently a Royals prospect. He went 56th overall to the Toronto Blue Jays, and they said, we cannot agree to a deal, and he went unsigned. So that's the best one we got. It's not Adley Rutschman, but it is interesting. Now we're going to go over to the players who had qualifying offers attached. So there's most of these names are kind of expected. So Max Scherzer,
of
obviously,
course.
James Shields,
At the
You
time.
remember at the time, yeah. Nelson Cruz,
Yep, still could probably get a
Hanley
qualifier
Ramirez. Oh
offer. Oh
yeah,
yeah, like Hanley, back in 2015, I remember people wanted him.
Russell Martin.
Not,
Now these get a go ahead.
I was gonna say, not so sure about the Russell Martin. He was kind of coming down a little bit from his career at
He
that
was,
time,
but the
but
Blue Jays
yeah,
gave up the pick to get him.
I guess so.
Now these get a little more silly. David Robertson
Oh man, a reliever got a qualifying offer.
in 2015. Yeah, Pablo Sandoval,
Of course.
Melky Cabrera,
Ooh, gotta love the milkman.
Irvin Santana.
Somehow, most of these guys are still around.
And now this is the one that I was laughing when I saw it. Do you remember qualifying offer Michael Kadire?
Oh man, who gave 40-year-old Michael Kadire a qualifying offer?
The Rockies gave it to him,
Oh
and
man.
somehow he didn't accept it. And then the Mets gave up their first round pick to
Oh
go
man.
and sign him.
That is not a good look by the Mets there.
So I'm not exactly sure which player was drafted with the pick that the Mets gave up, but yeah, they gave up their pick for 1 year of a senior citizen, Michael Kadire, and then he left. He
Yeah,
retired
he
after that
retired.
year.
Man,
All right.
why would the Rockies do that? They're so lucky that he
I
didn't
don't
accept that.
They got extremely lucky, and the player they ended up picking with their compensatory pick was Tyler Devin, who is pretty much stuck in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
All right. Pick number 16. Get us back on track.
All right, let's do it. So, yeah, as you all know, I'm an Arizona State product, so it pains me to say that we're taking a second Wildcat here in
Oh,
this
brother.
draft, and that is going to be utility man for the Philadelphia Phillies, Scott Kingery.
Well, I had him number 14 on my big board. I had a player who I will
Also,
draft next ahead of
also have
him.
him at 14.
All right. Well, I think that we've seen that he can be a league average hitter and can play all over the diamond and play pretty well, and he runs well. So he's
Exactly.
a
And
pretty quality player.
last year, 19 home runs, even though it was a juice ball, showed a little bit more pop with the bat, which is pretty exciting for
And now he's not playing with Gabe Kapler, so that should help him.
him.
All right. Well, this is the one player I had, Scott Kingery. It is another prospect, just like Tristan McKenzie. And I'm going to go with the Pirates prospect, Brian Hayes, who, first of all, has an incredible name. Second of all, he plays a tremendous third base, one of the best defensive prospects in the minor leagues. And third of all, well, he didn't mash last year, but he's expected to mash at the big leagues. And I think that worst case scenario, you get a guy who can play credible defense in the big leagues. Best case scenario, you get a two-way star. So I'm gonna go with Brian Hayes.
That was a guy that was right next to Scott Kingery on my list at number 15. So you just stole him under my nose.
He came out of Concordia Lutheran High School. Was the 32nd overall pick.
All right. Well, what pick is this? 17?
This is number 18.
Number 18. Okay. Well, as you can see from this draft, a lot of these guys have been glove first players. So I'm going to continue that trend. The next two players on my list are both St. Louis Cardinals. So I'm going with center fielder Harrison Bader, who was originally a third round pick and the number 100 overall selection.
I see that pick as you're basically banking on what he's done already. In that he's already been worth about 5-6 WAR as a player, at least by
Yeah.
R WAR, but also did fall off last year, was out of the lineup as the year came to a close. So you do wonder whether that 2018 that he had, where he was a pretty good hitter, 106 OPS plus, but then the other 2 years in his career, he's been in the 70s. So you do wonder which one is real there.
Yeah, so I'm banking on him kind of falling at least in the middle of these past 2 years. I think he is kind of more of the 2018 and 2019. I think his bat could come around a little bit still, but still an incredible defender. Gold glove defense out there in center, which is uh, pretty valuable. So, you know, not many good players in this draft. So
And he's a very good base runner
Yes,
too.
exactly.
He is fun to watch. He take kind of similar to Javier Baez, where he takes a little, and will get a lot out of it.
Yep.
Well, you've been taking glove first players, so I'm going to take a bat first player. And this is a guy who has not really had great success at the big league level, at least in terms of WAR. He did hit the ball pretty well last year. I'm going to take Willie Calhoun, who was drafted by the Dodgers in the fourth round, the 132nd overall pick, and then was traded in the Yu Darvish trade. And I'm taking him because last year, as a 24-year-old, he had a 110 OPS plus, and I think he can maybe do a little better than that. Can maybe get up to 115, 120, which for a player, even if he doesn't play good defense, which he doesn't, is still a pretty valuable player.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't really play defense at all. That's kind of the knock on him. But yeah, probably one of the better hitters in this draft class, and that's saying something because there's not many.
Yeah,
Says something about this draft class.
you're really about to see how few hitters there are. About bottom 10 picks. Number
Yep.
20.
I think right around here is where it's going to get interesting. As I mentioned before, uh, I had two St. Louis Cardinals back to back in my rankings, and I'm guessing you can guess who this one is. This guy recently had Tommy John surgery, but before that he was throwing 105 mile per hour sinkers. So I'm banking on his Tommy John recovery going well, and that's going to be reliever Jordan Hicks. So I know it's.
I had he,
Go ahead.
I had him number 24, and I would have had him higher if not for the Tommy John. But he's also a guy where if he comes back and loses 6 miles an hour, well, he's throwing 98 now.
Yep, and that's the problem with this draft class is that a guy who just had Tommy John and possibly can come back throwing 95, 97 miles per hour is going to be a top 20 pick
And
because,
he's a reliever.
and not even a closer, he's just a reliever.
Yeah, we all know Carlos Martinez is the one on that team with the mentality.
Exactly.
All right, well, I had this guy right between Austin Riley and Harrison Bader in my rankings, and he came up last year in a September stint, was worth, I believe, about .6 WAR and 77 at bats. Showed that he can play center field, that he can hit lefties, and he's a tools guy. Was a 15th round draft pick, the 437th overall out of a team that Luka Doncic never played, Wichita State. I'm going to take the man who was number 19 on my board, and that is Sam Hilliard.
All right. Are we sure he's eligible? I thought he didn't sign.
Did he not
I
sign?
don't think he signed in that draft. I
No,
think he.
no. He was drafted as a junior in 2014, and then he signed in 2015.
Gotcha. That's something that I messed up on here. I probably should have had him in my top 30 compared to some of these guys that are at the bottom here.
Are you high on Hilliard?
I do like Slam Hilliard. I think he could be a good player.
Yeah, I think that he has the potential to be an everyday center fielder. Now, Charlie Blackmon isn't a center fielder anymore. He's going to be getting that playing time. So I think he's a pretty good pick there at number 21.
All right, I like that pick. So my next pick is going to be a pitcher again out of in the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. This guy came up, had a decent start to his career last year, 3.56 ERA, went 7-5, and that's going to be Alex Young.
Well, he's shown that he knows how to win. This is the first pick that was not in my top 30.
Yeah, I thought when he came up last year, he kind of showed that hey, this guy might be able to pitch in the big leagues. 125 ERA plus last year. The FIP was really high at 481, but the WHIP was at 188. So I'm going to bank on him kind of falling somewhere in the middle and becoming a good four starter.
I think he's a reliever long term. That's
You
why I
think he's
didn't
a
have
reliever?
him.
I can see
Yeah,
why you see that.
and I don't think he's a. I don't think he's a dominant reliever.
No, with his stuff, he kind of has to be a 4 or 5 starter or a long reliever. There's no real turning him into a closer.
Yes. Well, as you can tell by Alex Young getting picked, this is where this draft just falls off a cliff.
Yep.
These last couple picks, these are really tough. And I did not have Alex Young. I had him in my honorable mentions, but here's a guy who I had ranked number 21. Is currently a San Diego Padre, and that is Trent Grisham.
All righty. He was number 21 on my list as well.
Grisham, I don't know how well he's going to hit. He was only 22 and came up and had 90 OPS plus, and so I think that he can. I think that he can get that up to about 100, 110, somewhere around there. Is playable in center field. He played and started 14 games last year for the Brewers in center field. So similar to Sam Hilliard, you get a and is in center field. That's a guy you want to go after.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he was right about where I expected him to be drafted. Last year, we all know he had the wild card game kind of misplay that led to the Washington Nationals being the World Series champs. But now he's in San Diego. Hopefully, he can reset and not have a situation where he gets the yips.
And I should mention that at the time he was seen as a big overdraft at number 15. He was not on Keith Law's top 100. And then Kylie McDaniel, who did the draft of the top 26, was not mentioned on that list either.
Interesting. All right.
All right.
Well,
Number 24.
My 24th pick is going to be a guy that was also selected in the first round. The number 36 overall pick. This is going to be Orioles prospect Ryan Mountcastle.
Ryan Mountcastle did not even make my honorable mentions.
I think he's a decent first base prospect out there. He can get something. I know they're barren out there in Baltimore, but I think he could be a decent major league hitter if he can really get the bat and the ball.
It's a little tough just because Chris Davis is fucking him.
Yep. You got Chris Davis. You got Mark Trumbo. Just got to make sure you outplay the vets.
And now Trey Mancini, too.
Yeah, that's
All
true.
right. Pick number 25 here, and I'm going to go with a guy who's ranked number 22 on my board. We were talking about him yesterday and about how him making the top 30 showed that this draft was very weak. And that's going to be Miles Straw, who was picked 349th overall out of community college in Florida by the Houston Astros. And I'm picking him just because I think that he can be a super utility guy. The Astros have had him playing a whole bunch of different positions. I think that he can be valuable on the base paths, can be valuable defensively, and maybe can be a league average hitter. And if he can do that, then I think that he's a guy worth having on a team and maybe even being kind of a lower end everyday player.
All right. Well, my pick, we're going to go right into it. This guy came up for the Dodgers last year, provided a little bit of a spark, 9 home runs in 249 at bats. Played a little bit of first, played a little bit of left field. He's pretty much playing all over the place, and that's going to be Matt Beatty, who was the 372nd overall pick in the 12th round in 2015.
And I think that what we've seen is that the Dodgers draft they develop very well. Someone like Beatty, we saw Tony Gonsolin yesterday, who wasn't drafted super high, but ends up being pretty quality player. And 2, this draft is weak.
Yep. This is the part where there's guys that aren't even top 100 prospects that I'm going to be taking.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you know that Ryan Helsley almost made my top 30, so that's where we are as a...
I'm going to tell you something. Ryan Helsley made mine.
He made your top 30.
He did, in fact, make my top 30.
That's where we are as a draft. All right, well, I'm going to take with the 27th overall pick. I'm going to take the man who's number 25 on my board, who was drafted with the 11th pick, and that is Tyler Stevenson, who's the catcher, was drafted by Cincinnati, has struggled with injuries, even though he's 22 now, spent last year in Double A and hit okay, 782 OPS, had a pretty good fall league for Glendale. And I think that at this point, if you take a catcher who maybe can hit, it's better than what we got. It's better than the rest
It's
of what we
true.
got.
Yeah, I like that pick. I saw Stevenson play a lot in the fall league. Has really developed the bat pretty well over the past 3 seasons. Hasn't had a season under 730 OPS. For a catcher, it's really all you can ask. In the fall league, had a 908 OPS, which is very good. Really good to see him come back from injuries and have a nice season out there.
All right, pick number 28.
Pick number 28. All right, second to last pick for me. Well, I mentioned that Ryan Helsley was on my list, and looks like we're going with the third St. Louis Cardinal here.
Ryan Helsley. I thought about putting him on my list. He was the first player to miss. The thing that held me off was that the fifth was 4.22. So I don't know. He might be more of an up and down guy than a seventh, eighth inning reliever.
Well, that's the thing that we got to bank on in this draft is that he can just play in the major leagues.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to take with my last pick a guy who I had ranked right between Miles Straw and Jordan Hicks, and that is Josh Naylor, who was the 12th overall pick. Do you know who Josh Naylor was traded for?
Oh, okay. So he was a Marlins, correct? Marlins prospect?
He was drafted by the Marlins.
Was this the Fernando Rodney trade?
You know it.
I knew it.
Lovely. Josh Naylor, we've seen him not really be able to hit. He doesn't have a position, but I think that he's got the potential to mash, even if he doesn't have a position. And that's what I'm going with at number 29.
All right. Well, here's the part where this draft gets interesting. Mr. Irrelevant. I'm torn between all the guys on my list right now because two of them are not top 100 prospects and just guys that I've seen play in the Arizona Fall League and play decently. And two of them are guys who have played in the big leagues but have not played well that much. So, all these guys were
Cheers.
basically tied for the last spot. You're going to have to give me a second here because I really don't know.
Well, this is a big decision, so get all the time.
All right. Well, for me, I think I'm going to go with one of the players that I saw play in the Arizona Fall League last year. This guy played for the Salt River Rafters last year. Hasn't really showed it in the minors all that much, but I'm going to go with Nick Neidert of the Miami Marlins.
Wow. I thought about putting him on my honorable mentions and ended up not. I feel like he's one of those names you feel like you've heard a lot of and you don't know why. It's because he's been involved in trades. I think he was traded for D. Gordon, right?
Yes, that was the trade.
But ultimately, I did not put him on my list. Although at this point, who really knows?
Exactly. Last year, played in 5 games for the Salt River Rafters, 1.25 ERA, but in the regular season, 4.67 ERA between high A and triple A, and 2 starts in rookie league. And then in 2018, really probably his best season, 3.24 ERA for double A Jacksonville.
All right. Well, I am looking forward to this part. How many players from your top 30 were not drafted?
Surprisingly, only 3.
I had 4. The Matt Beatty was drafted 27, but other than that, 26 through 30 all went undrafted. Who was your highest ranked player who did not get drafted?
My highest ranked player was Dakota Chalmers from the Minnesota Twins.
I had Colby Allard ranked number 26 just because he was a prospect once upon a time.
Yep. And at number 29, I had Taylor Clark from the Arizona Diamondbacks.
I did not. I didn't list him just because he doesn't have that upside. I had Edwin Rios drafted number 28 just because we've seen him come up and mash.
Yep.
I've been saying that word a lot. We've seen him come up and mash with the Dodgers, even if it's not as if he has a track to extended playing time.
Yep. And then who'd you have at 29 and 30?
I had Kyle Garlick at number
Oh
29.
man.
was yes, that I had a player who was DFA'd, although it wasn't as if he was DFA'd because he was bad. It's because the Dodgers 40 bit is ridiculous. And then at number 30, this is a heck of a name. I had Seth Brown.
All right. My number 30 spot was occupied by none other than Baltimore Orioles outfielder DJ Stewart.
I had DJ Stewart in my honorable mention. I also had Steven Duggar was there, Patrick Sandoval, Trent Thornton, James Caprillion, and then Los Angeles Angels prospect Jemai Jones.
Yeah, not a very good draft. Probably would have had Jemai up there if this had been taking place last year at this time, but he did not make the cut in this one.
He's similar to Fletcher in that he does not have power.
He doesn't have power, but he's also not that great of a glove, which is the big difference between him and Fletcher.
Yes. Well, this was very fun. Let's go over the teams real quick. I went first. I had Alex Breckman, Andrew Benintendi, Paul DeYoung, Ian Happ, Brendan Rodgers, Kevin Newman, Kyle Tucker, Tristan McKenzie, Cabrian Hayes, Willie Calhoun, Sam Hilliard, Trent Grisham, Miles Straw, Tyler Stevenson, and Josh Naylor. You drafted Walker Bueller, Mike Soroka, Chris Paddock, Brandon Lau, not Lowe, Austin Riley, David Fletcher, Dansby Swanson, Scott Kingery, Harrison Bader, Jordan Hicks, Alex Young, Orioles prospect Ryan Mountcastle, Matt Beatty, Ryan Helsley, who I mentioned was my that was pretty funny, but I mentioned he was my honorable mention, and then the perennially mentioned Nick Nider. Well, that draft was pretty bad.
Not nearly to the level of last night's. 2016 had some great names in there.
Yeah, 2016, you have guys like Zach Collins going undrafted, John Duplantier. If John Duplantier is drafted high in this one,
John Duplantier is probably a top 20 pick in here.
and
Let's see.
Aaron Savali is definitely drafted.
Yeah, there's four guys that we did not take on my list for 2016. I think I would have taken them all after after the number 20 pick. Dane Dunning, Zach Collins, Justin Dunn, and Bobby Dalbec.
Well,
And
the good news is that the 2014 draft was very good,
yeah, so we're gonna have a fun time with that one.
especially near the top. So we are going to have fun with that. In the meantime, we hope you enjoy listening to the 2015 draft. For Nick Aguilera, I'm Andrew Varga. Thank you for listening to the Cal Quarantrill Project, part of the 14th inning stretch, and we hope that you all have a tremendous day.